I built my daughter a rocking chair for Christmas. 6 months of work. My hands ached for weeks carving the joints. She unwrapped it, looked at it like I'd handed her a dead fish, and said, "Dad, this is so old-fashioned." We're doing Scandinavian minimalist now. 3 weeks later, I sold that chair at a furniture auction in Toronto for $75,000. When she found out, she lost her mind. But that was only the beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is, where you are now. The wrapping paper fell to the floor, green and silver. I'd wrapped it myself, which at 68 years old, with arthritic fingers, took me 45 minutes. My daughter stood in my living room in North Vancouver, holding the chair like it might bite her. "Dad, what is this?" Her voice had that tone, the one she'd perfected somewhere between her 20th birthday and her 40th. Polite confusion masking complete dismissal. "It's a rocking chair." I kept my voice steady. "I made it for you." Her husband, Derek, glanced up from his phone. "Finally. Babe, that's nice. Your dad made you something." "I know he made it." She ran her hand along the armrest. "But it's so heavy and dark. We're doing light woods now. Birch, maybe ash." The chair was black walnut. I'd found the wood 3 years ago at an estate sale in Kelowna. Old-growth timber from a barn built in 1890. The grain was extraordinary, tight and swirling like frozen smoke. I'd dried it myself, planned it myself, spent 6 months shaping every curve. "Maybe you could keep it at your place?" She smiled, bright and empty. "It would look perfect in your workshop." My workshop, where I'd built it, for her. "I made this specifically for you. For your reading corner. You mentioned wanting a comfortable chair." "That was like 2 years ago, Dad. Our style has evolved." Derek nodded. "Clean lines, you know? This is kind of cottagecore. Not really our vibe. Cottagecore." I didn't know what that meant. I also didn't care. My granddaughters, Sophie and Emma, sat on the couch playing with their new tablets, $800 each. Gifts from me. They hadn't looked up in 20 minutes. I'd also paid for their private school tuition, $32,000 this year. But the handmade rocking chair was apparently the problem. "Tell you what," my daughter brightened with a solution. "We could donate it to Habitat for Humanity. They do that furniture thing, right? Someone would love it. Habitat for Humanity." I spent 6 months building a chair from century-old black walnut, and she wanted to donate it to a charity resale shop. "Sure." I picked up the chair. "I'll take care of it." "Great. Problem solved." She checked her phone. "Now, what's for lunch?" "The girls are starving." I carried the chair to my truck, set it in the bed carefully, stood there in the December, cold, breath fogging, and stared at the mountains across the inlet. 40 years I'd been a furniture maker. Started as an apprentice in my father's shop in Montreal when I was 16. Moved to Vancouver in 1985. Built a reputation. My pieces sat in homes across Canada, in galleries in New York and London, in the permanent collection of the Canadian Museum of History. I'd been featured in Canadian Living, profiled in the Globe and Mail. 2 of my chairs sold at Christie's in 2019. My daughter thought my work belonged at a charity shop. I drove home, didn't stay for lunch, called my old friend Martin that evening. Martin Chen. We'd known each other 30 years. He ran the finest furniture auction house in Toronto. Specialized in Canadian craftwork, heritage pieces, things with history and soul. "Walter," he answered on the second ring. "Merry Christmas. I have something for your February auction." "The black walnut rocker? How did you know?" "Because you've been talking about that chair for 2 years. You said it was for your daughter." "Plans change." Silence. Then, carefully, "Everything okay?" "My daughter wants clean lines. She's into Scandinavian minimalist now." "Ah," he understood. "When can you ship it?" "Tomorrow." Martin's appraiser called me 3 days later. Her name was Jennifer. Young, enthusiastic, knew her stuff. "Mr. Morrison, this piece is exceptional. The joinery is museum quality, and the wood itself, we've confirmed it's authentic old-growth black walnut, likely from the 1,870 seconds, or 1,870 880 seconds. Estate sale in Kelowna. We're estimating $60,000 to $80,000. Given your reputation and the provenance, possibly higher. Fine. Are you sure you want to sell this? It seems. Personal. It was personal. It was a gift. The recipient suggested I donate it to charity. Jennifer paused. Their loss. Yes, it was. February 14th, Valentine's Day. Fitting. Somehow. I didn't fly to Toronto. Watched the auction online from my living room. Snow falling outside. Coffee getting cold. Lot 23 came up. The auctioneer's voice was professional, measured. Walter Morrison. Master Craftsman. Black walnut rocking chair. 2024. Old growth timber. Hand-carved joinery. Signed and documented. Opening bid, $40,000. Paddles rose immediately. Phone lines lit up, $45,000, $50,000. We have $55,000. My phone buzzed. Derek. I ignored it. $60,000. $65,000. The gentleman in the back. $70,000. Buzzed again. My daughter. Ignored. $72,000. $74,000. Fair warning. The hammer fell. Sold. $75,000 to the phone bidder. My screen showed the final price in bold numbers. $75,000 CAD. Plus buyer's premium, the chair fetched over $90,000 total. Charity shop material, apparently. I turned off my phone, poured a glass of scotch, sat in my workshop surrounded by wood shavings and the smell of linseed oil. The silence felt expensive. My phone had 17 missed calls when I turned it back on. 12 from my daughter, 5 from Derek. 23 text messages. I read one. Dad, that was my chair. Call me now. I called Martin instead. Congratulations. His voice was warm. The buyer was a collector from Hong Kong. Huge fan of your work. Says he's been trying to acquire a Morrison original for 15 years. Glad it found a good home. Walter, your daughter's been calling the auction house. She's claiming the sale was unauthorized. The chair was my property. I made it. I never formally gifted it to her. I know. Just thought you should be aware. Thank you. Be careful. He paused. Family and money make strange bedfellows. The war had begun. My daughter's car appeared in my driveway the next morning. 9 a.m. She'd driven from Vancouver in what must have been white-knuckle traffic across the Lion's Gate. $75,000. She stood in my kitchen, coat still on, face red from cold or anger. You sold my chair for $75,000. Your chair? I poured coffee. I made that chair, in my workshop, with my tools. Using wood, I purchased. You gave it to me for Christmas. And you rejected it. Said it was too cottagecore. Suggested I donate it to Habitat for Humanity. I didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said. Derek appeared behind her. Corn, let's all calm down here. My name is Walter. Right. Sorry. Walter. He raised his hands. Look, this is clearly a misunderstanding. The chair was a gift. Legally. That makes it hers. Does it? I pulled out my phone. Opened an email. Turned the screen toward them. This is the legal definition of gift under Canadian common law. A gift requires 3 elements: intent to give, delivery, and acceptance. You rejected the chair, suggested I dispose of it. That's not acceptance. Derek's face tightened. You're twisting. I'm stating facts, something I learned in 40 years of business. My daughter sat down hard. Her eyes were wet. Dad, why are you being like this? Like what? Accurate? Mean. She looked up at me. You're being mean. I set down my coffee, looked at her. Really looked. She was 42. I remembered her at 4, helping me sand a table in my first workshop. Remembered her at 8, carefully applying finish to a jewelry box she'd made for her mother. Remembered her at 16, announcing she hated woodworking and never wanted to touch a chisel again. I remembered all of it. I gave you something I made with my own hands, I said slowly. Something that took 6 months of work. You looked at it like garbage. I didn't. Old-fashioned. Cottagecore. Donate it to charity. Those were your exact words. Silence. Derek shifted. Okay, but $75,000. That's a lot of money. We think Bree deserves compensation. Compensation for what? For her chair? I almost laughed. Didn't quite manage it. Your wife rejected a gift. I sold my own property. That's the end of the story. We could get a lawyer. Please do. I smiled. I've been through 3 audits with the CRA, and I've won all of them. I keep excellent records. Something shifted in my daughter's face. The tears dried. Her expression calculated, sharpened. Dad, she said carefully, you're 70, 68. You're living alone, making big financial decisions. Maybe we should be more involved in your affairs. The temperature in the room dropped. Involved how? Derek stepped forward. We're just saying, for your protection. My protection. There are people who take advantage of seniors. My daughter's voice was sweet now, caring. We don't want that happening to you. I looked at them both, my daughter and her husband, standing in my kitchen, suggesting I needed protection. From myself, because I'd sold a chair they'd rejected. Get out, Dad. Now. They left, finally. But my daughter threw one last look around the kitchen, the living room, the hallway lined with my work. Furniture I'd built over 4 decades. Tables, cabinets, chairs. Each piece worth thousands. Some worth tens of thousands. I saw her calculating, saw the numbers running behind her eyes. I'd made a mistake. A critical one. I'd shown them value existed in this house. Now they would hunt. My son lived in Calgary. Marcus, 45, accountant, married to a woman named Priya, who worked in healthcare policy. 2 kids. They visited twice a year, called every Sunday, never asked for money. I called him that night. Dad, what happened? Your sister discovered I sold the rocking chair. For $75,000? He whistled. That's impressive. She's upset. She's always upset about money. He paused. Are you okay? I'm fine, but I need to ask you something. About the house. We talked for an hour. Plans, possibilities, protection. When the call ended, I pulled out a business card from my desk drawer. Sarah Chen, estate lawyer. No relation to Martin. Vancouver had a lot of Chens. I need to update my will, and I need to understand my options regarding house guests who've overstayed their welcome. They're living with you? They have been. 3 years. Rent-free. Generous. It was. I'm reconsidering. Her voice shifted. Professional. When can you come in? Tomorrow. My daughter and Derek had moved in during COVID. Temporary, they said, just until they got back on their feet. Their condo sold for a good profit, but somehow the money disappeared. Credit card debt, they explained. Student loans. Life. 3 years later, they were still in my basement suite. I paid their utilities, bought their groceries, covered Sophie and Emma's school tuition. The receipts filled 3 folders in my filing cabinet. March. The competency letter arrived. Dear Mr. Morrison, I am writing on behalf of my clients, Brianna and Derek Sullivan, to formally request a professional assessment of your cognitive and financial decision-making capacity. I read it twice. Called Sarah. They're claiming you donated a valuable antique to charity and sold a family heirloom impulsively. Evidence of declining judgment. I donated that piece to the Vancouver Art Gallery 2 years ago. On purpose. For a tax benefit. I know. We have documentation. And the family heirloom was a chair I made last year. Also documented. So this is baseless. Completely. But you'll still need to undergo evaluation. It's standard procedure when a petition is filed. My own daughter filed a competency petition against me because I sold a chair she rejected. Canadian winters are long. They give you time to think. Too much time, maybe. I thought about the chair while snow piled against my workshop windows. Thought about the grain of that black walnut, the way it curved under my hands. Thought about the 6 months I'd spent imagining my daughter sitting in it, reading, comfortable, surrounded by something I'd made for her. She never saw any of that. She saw furniture that didn't match her aesthetic. Maybe I'd failed somewhere along the way. Hadn't taught her to recognize value. Hadn't shown her that some things mattered more than style. Or maybe she'd chosen this, chosen surfaces over substance, chosen money over meaning. The evaluation happened in April. Dr. Richard Kaufman, geriatric psychiatrist, office in Kitsilano, with a view of the mountains. He asked me to count backwards from 100 by sevens, draw a clock, name the Prime Minister. I got everything right except the Prime Minister's approval rating, which he said wasn't actually part of the test. Mr. Morrison, you're cognitively excellent. Sharp, articulate, clearly organized. Thank you. Can I ask you something off the record? Go ahead. Why do you think your daughter filed this petition? Because she saw a $75,000 price tag and started wondering what else in my house was worth money. He nodded slowly. That's what I suspected. Does that happen often? More than you'd think. He set down his pen. Adult children see elderly parents as obstacles to inheritance. It's ugly, but common. I'm not elderly. I'm 68. To them, anyone over 60 is elderly. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. My advice? Protect your assets, update your documentation, and don't let them make you doubt yourself. Sarah had the same advice. We sat in her office, documents spread across the table. Deed to the house, bank statements, 3 years of support receipts. You've given them over $120,000 in the past 3 years. She looked up. Rent equivalent, utilities, groceries, tuition. I was helping family. You were being exploited. I flinched at the word. Was I? She slid a document across the table. You can formalize these as loans. Establish that you were generous by choice, not by obligation. When you stop being generous, I have options. Exactly. I signed the papers. Felt something shift. Not good, not bad, just different. Meanwhile, my daughter discovered an interest in antiques. I learned this later. Security cameras. Sarah's suggestion. My property, completely legal. The footage showed my daughter moving through my house while I was at a doctor's appointment. She photographed everything. The Mennonite blanket chest in the hallway. The shaker-style dining table I'd built in 1998. The Queen Anne chair I'd restored for my wife before she died. She measured the blanket chest. Typed on her phone, probably researching values. Derek appeared behind her. What about the stuff in his workshop? Locked. She shook her head. He never lets us in there. That's where the real money is. I saw that auction. His stuff sells for tens of thousands. They stood in my hallway, calculating my worth. Like real estate agents appraising a property. Like vultures circling a carcass that hadn't stopped breathing yet. But the blanket chest obsessed them. It sat in my hallway. Solid pine, original paint. My grandmother brought it from Manitoba in 1952. It had been in my family for over 100 years. I'd mentioned once carelessly, stupidly, that similar pieces sold for $40,000 at auction. I was explaining craftsmanship to Emma. She'd asked why old furniture was special. I'd shown her the dovetail joints, the hand-forged hinges, the patina of age. My daughter had been listening. Now I watched on security footage as Derek tried to pick the lock on my workshop. Paperclip, YouTube tutorial on his phone. He tried for 20 minutes before giving up. I could have just given him the key. Would have saved us both time. But I was curious. How far would they go? May. Spring in Vancouver. Cherry blossoms everywhere. Beautiful. Brief. My daughter made me breakfast. 3 days in a row. Eggs, bacon, fresh squeezed orange juice. Good morning, Dad. Her voice was warm. Musical. Wrong. What's the occasion? No occasion. Can't I take care of my father? I ate the eggs. They were slightly overcooked, but the effort was there. Dad, she said on the third day, I've been thinking about the blanket chest. Have you? It's such a beautiful piece. Historic. We should make sure it's properly documented. For insurance. It's documented. But professionally? With an appraisal? I set down my fork. Looked at her. Brianna. I used her full name. That chest belonged to your great-grandmother. Your grandmother. Your mother. It stays in this family. Her eyes lit up. Of course. That's exactly what I mean. We should know what it's worth. For the family. I pushed back from the table. Thanks for breakfast. But I have work to do. In my workshop, I locked the door, pulled up the security footage from last night, watched Derek photographing the blanket chest from 6 angles, checking the maker's marks, typing notes into his phone. They weren't interested in family history. They were building an inventory. I called Sarah. I need to accelerate the estate plan. How fast? Fast as legally possible. June. The paperwork came through. Marcus now owned 50% of my house. Legal transfer, notarized, filed with the land registry office. This made him technically his sister's landlord. The blanket chest went to the Vancouver Art Gallery. Donation papers signed and sealed. Tax receipt issued. My workshop contents, 40 years of tools, materials, and finished pieces, were now held in a trust that would transfer to Marcus upon my death. My daughter was specifically excluded. These things feel cruel when you write them down, when you formalize love into legal documents. But I'd watched her measuring my furniture like a butcher sizing up a carcass. I'd seen the hunger in her eyes. Some lessons require paperwork. I told them about the blanket chest during dinner. I'd cooked. Salmon, roasted vegetables, wild rice, good food. Last supper, in a way. I have an announcement. My daughter looked up, hopeful. I've donated the blanket chest to the Vancouver Art Gallery. They're creating a permanent exhibit on Western Canadian folk art. Silence. The kind that has weight. You what? It's already done. Papers signed, piece transported. They're very excited. Derek's fork hit his plate. That chest was worth about $45,000. I nodded. The gallery appraised it. They're naming the exhibit after our family, the Morrison Collection. But that was... My daughter's voice cracked. That was supposed to be what? Mine. She whispered it. Ours. I set down my wine glass. Your great-grandmother carried that chest from Manitoba in the back of a truck. Your grandmother refinished it after a basement flood nearly destroyed it. Your mother loved that chest, kept her wedding dress in it for 30 years. I know, but you never asked about any of that. Never asked about the history. You asked about the value. She stared at me, eyes wet, face red. What happened to you, Dad? I could ask you the same thing. The eviction notice came in July. I delivered it myself. Formal document. Legal language. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. Derek grabbed it, scanned it. You can't do this. I can. I own this property. We've been here 3 years. We have tenant rights. Your guests. Sarah's voice came from behind me. She'd insisted on being present. No rent paid, no lease signed. Under BC law, your licensees. 30 days' notice is generous. My daughter looked at me. At the lawyer. Back at me. You planned this. The whole thing. The chair, the chest, all of it. You were setting us up. I was protecting myself. From my own daughter. We're your family. Family doesn't file competency petitions. I kept my voice level. Family doesn't inventory my possessions while I'm at the doctor. Family doesn't wait for me to die so they can inherit my things. We never. I have security footage, Brianna. I've seen everything. Her face went white. Then red, then something I didn't recognize. Where are we supposed to go? You have 30 days to figure that out. The final confrontation came 3 weeks later. They'd found an apartment, Burnaby, 2 bedrooms, expensive for what it was, but they had no credit, no references, no options. Marcus had co-signed. For the grandchildren, he said. My daughter came alone. No Derek, no anger, just exhaustion. Can I talk to you? I let her in. We sat in my workshop. First time she'd been inside in years. She looked around. At the tools hanging on pegboard walls. At the lumber stacked by species and age. At the half-finished table on my bench. I remember this place. Her voice was soft. When I was little, you used to let me help sand things. You were good at it. Careful. Patient. She touched the table. Cherry? Maple. Special order for a client in Toronto. It's beautiful. Thank you. Silence stretched. She stared at her hands. I came to say I'm sorry. The words came out rough. Not for all of it, but for some of it. For the competency petition. That was wrong. Yes, it was. Derek wanted, she stopped. It doesn't matter what Derek wanted. I signed the papers. I'm responsible. I waited. She looked up. When did you stop loving me? The question hit like a fist. I never stopped. My voice cracked. I stopped trusting you. That's different. Is it? Yes. She wiped her eyes. The blanket chest. I used to hide in it when I was little. When Mom and I played hide and seek. I remember. I forgot. Until you donated it. Then I remembered. She laughed, bitter. Too late, right? I didn't answer. What happens now? You move out. You build your own life. You learn what things are worth beyond price tags. And us? You and me? I don't know. Time will tell. She stood, looked around my workshop one more time. I was so angry. At you, at everything. I convinced myself you owed me something, that your things should be my things, that I deserved. What? I don't know. Security? Comfort? Something to show for being your daughter? Being my daughter isn't a transaction. I know that now. I walked her to the door. She stopped on the porch, turned back. The chair you made, the rocking chair, was it really worth $75,000? To the right buyer, yes. And to you? More. I paused. It was the last piece I'll ever make with my hands in good condition. Arthritis is getting worse. Her face crumpled. I didn't know. You didn't ask. She left. The truck came 3 days later. I watched from my window. Boxes, furniture, pieces of their life that had accumulated in my basement over 3 years. Sophie and Emma carried their toys. Too quiet for children. My phone buzzed. Text from my daughter. Thank you for not making this harder than it had to be. I didn't respond. September. 6 months later. My life is quieter now. Smaller, but it fits. I finished the maple table. Shipped it to Toronto. Client was happy. Paid $18,000. I donated half to a woodworking program for at-risk youth in East Vancouver. Marcus visits more often now. Brings his kids. They ask about the tools, the wood, the work. They ask questions my daughter stopped asking decades ago. The Vancouver Art Gallery opened the Morrison Collection exhibit. I attended the reception. Stood in front of my grandmother's blanket chest, now behind glass, preserved forever. A young woman approached. Curator, her name tag said. Mr. Morrison, I just wanted to say this collection is extraordinary. The craftsmanship, the history. Thank you for sharing it. I nodded. Some things belong to everyone. My daughter wasn't there. I hadn't expected her. But a card arrived the next week. Hand-delivered. No return address. Dad. I went to the exhibit. Alone. Stood in front of the blanket chest for an hour. I remember now. All of it. The history. The love. I'm sorry I forgot. Working on being better. Not for inheritance. For myself. Maybe someday we can talk. Bree. I stared at the card for a long time. Placed it on my workbench. Didn't throw it away. Some things take time. Forgiveness. Trust. Understanding that love and disappointment can exist in the same space. That you can miss someone and still need distance from them. I'm 68. Maybe 30 years left if I'm lucky. 20 if I'm not. Enough time to see if she means it. Not enough time to waste on hoping she doesn't. October now. Rain against the windows. A new piece taking shape under my hands. Cherry wood this time. A jewelry box. Small. Delicate. For Sophie's 18th birthday. 5 years from now. I'll probably still be here. Probably still working. The box will have dovetailed joints. Hand-carved roses. A secret compartment. I won't tell my daughter I'm making it. Won't ask if it matches her aesthetic. Won't wait for approval or appreciation. I'll just make it. Because that's what I do. Because craft is love made visible. Because some gifts are meant to be given, not earned. And because maybe, in 5 years, Sophie will understand what her mother forgot. That the things we make with our hands outlast us. That patience and skill are their own reward. That family isn't about inheritance. It's about what we choose to pass down, and what we choose to let go. My phone buzzes. Text from my daughter. Coffee sometime? I look at it. Look at the cherry wood on my bench. Look out the window at the rain. Type, maybe. Let me think about it. Not yes. not no. Just honest. That's all I have left to give. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the link on screen. Thank you for listening.